너무너무 좀 감동적입니다. 왜냐하면은 저희 오늘 온 손님들을 보면은 이 한인 커뮤니티를 진짜 만드신 1세 어르신 분들로부터 비롯하여 2세 각계각층의 리더들도 오늘 참석을 했습니다. 그래서 이것이 오늘 모인 것이 앞으로 우리 한인 커뮤니티의 미래를 보여주는 것이 아닌가 생각이 됩니다. 그래서 다 같이 오늘 갈라의 팀처럼 인터제너레이셔널 각계 세대 간에 손잡고 우리 한인 커뮤니티를 더욱더 강력하게 만들 수 있는 그런 기회가 됐으면 합니다.
As much of a community advocate. Most of the time, I don't even think about being a Korean American. This is largely a function of my own background and journey. I was born in Korea, but I came to this country in 1980. And like many immigrants, we were largely focused on making a life for ourselves here in America. The New York City I grew up in didn't have that many Koreans, or even Asians for that matter, through most of my public school experience. And for certain, when I went off to college, there weren't that many Koreans to speak of. After graduation, I was back in New York, but in my professional life, I didn't regularly come across other Korean Americans. I guess I spent most of my time focused on being an American and striving to succeed as one. But there's one important window of time where things were very different. In high school at Stuyvesant, I was, for the first time, surrounded by Korean Americans. And even then, Asians were approximately half the population, and Korean Americans were amongst the largest groups. I distinctly remember the feeling, for the first time, that I did not feel like an outsider. I will always remember those years with fondness, and it's actually Stuyvesant that brings me here tonight, full circle. When our current mayor first campaigned for office, he made the demographic disparities at the specialized high schools a key policy issue in his push for a fairer New York. And while we have always acknowledged that the lack of diversity is an urgent problem that needs to be solved, we also believe that the traditions of academic rigor in the specialized high schools should not be compromised. So I chose to join the debate and help organize the Stuyvesant alumni behind our association. And as president of that association, I helped coordinate our alumni efforts with those from the other specialized high schools. And our efforts were rewarded in 2014 when the mayor backed off his proposals. But the issue returned with a vengeance in 2018. With his re-election and the more polarized political environment, the mayor redoubled his efforts to forcibly alter these specialized schools. This time, they pushed decisively to abandon objective academic merit to one modified by geography. By the city's own analysis, the proposed changes would have halved the Asian population in the specialized high schools. The Korean American population would have declined by 75%. And we Koreans specifically, amongst Asians generally, were now standing somehow in the way of a quote-unquote just society. And it was as if our academic achievements themselves were a barrier to equity in New York City. This time it would take a lot more than specialized high school alumni to stand up to the mayor. Asian Americans across New York City would have to make themselves heard if they wanted to participate in the actual policy-making process. So a few of us started to do outreach on Asian American community groups, and I was surprised to find so few Korean American community organizations that are both willing and able to stand up for our community. Luckily for us, CAGNY, the oldest and largest organization, was one of these few. And with their help, we succeeded. Not only did the mayor rescind his policy proposals, but he specifically apologized to the Asian American community for the insensitive way the policy had been rolled out, and for the fact that no efforts were made even to recognize the number of negative externalities this policy would have caused in our community. There was no doubt CAGNY was critical in helping us succeed. Now, I know we all have so many options when it comes to our community organizations worthy of our support. And there are so many competing priorities for our limited charitable time and monies. But today, as we celebrate the Korean American Association of Greater New York's 60th anniversary, I want to say how happy that I am to know that this organization exists and continues to flourish. As one of the oldest community groups, CAGNY has been serving our community from the very first generations of Korean immigrants. But it's the second and later generations of Korean immigrants that should make sure that they support CAGNY. Even though many of you, as do I, consider ourselves simply Americans most of the time, it's naive to believe that it will not always be the case that we are not viewed as hyphenated Americans. Not that we'd ever want to, but don't forget that we cannot escape our heritage if we tried. And as it were, during this niche battle over high school admissions, there will be times in the future when it'll be critical for all Korean Americans to come together behind our shared collective heritage. And when those times come, we will need to set aside our petty differences and focus on our mutual interests. And it is for those times I hope you will join me in continuing to support CAGNY so that it can serve future generations. Because I have some news for you. There's nothing more American than watching out for your own community's interests. Thank you.
Koreans are not all the same. The differences and diversity among this community are wide and broad, from cultural to political to socioeconomic to generational. And what I'm learning from being caught in this generational sandwich is that no one generation has all the answers. What one lacks, the other one has. Where one is weak, the other is strong. So building an engaged intergenerational community that works together to meet the unique needs of our community, and they are continuing needs, is critical, and it requires listening to one another. It requires mobilizing our combined strengths within this diverse community so that we can together have a more powerful voice that can truly demand full equality, more efficiently acquire political leverage, achieve greater impact in this broader American society in which we live.
우리가 함께 축하하고 있는 오늘 이 자리가 이민 동포 여러분들의 피와 땀에 숨결이 묻어있을 뿐만 아니라 비전의 열정 그리고 단합이 있었기에 참으로 뿌듯한 영사스러운 날이 아닐 수 없습니다. 오늘 받는 뉴욕 한인 직면단체 협의회의 감사장은 저희 개인이 아니고 직면단체 협의회 모든 분들께 영광을 드리고 싶습니다. 앞으로 더욱더 노력해서 한인들의 권익신장에 앞장서며 후세들의 미주 한인 역사와 자랑스러운 한국 문화를 알리며 호진양성에 이르는 자랑스러운 한국인으로서 이바지하고자 합니다.
I started in finance 26 years ago in New York. When Alex and I and many others started, there were very few Korean Americans. We didn't have anyone really to look up to, and we just had ourselves. Now, ourselves was enough because every Friday night we'd hang out, frankly get drunk, and go to K-Town, have a great time, and help each other out. Our goal was simply to help each other out. 15 years later, in 2009, we realized that there were a lot of senior Korean Americans who were in finance. And so we said, hey, let's start an organization to simply help each other out. What does help each other out mean? It means help each other get jobs, help each other get internships, help each other get promotions, and really just give advice and try to inspire each other to give back to the community. Now in 2020, Korea Finance Society has over 1,500 members in the tri-state area. More importantly, we have a fellowship program which has helped hundreds of people literally get jobs. We have subgroups of women senior women. There are literally hundreds of senior women who are partners in different organizations, who are heads of groups that actually get together quarterly to figure out how to inspire the younger group of Korean American women. In 2020, it is a fact that Korean Americans are great at finance. It's not an opinion, it is a fact. Now, having said that, that in itself is not the best accomplishment. What we need to make a fact as we look forward to for the next 10 years is that all Korean American finance professionals actually give back to the community. That they actually try to inspire all parts of the community. If I look forward to the next 10 years, we think that we will have double the number of Korean Americans in finance in New York, and we actually think we can have 10 times the impact because so many folks will actually do better in finance and get promoted in the next 10 years. That's all I have to say. 정말 감사합니다. 영광스러운 상을 받은 만큼 더 열심히 노력을 하겠습니다. Thank you.